Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. This is episode 985, my interview with Grace Marshall. We're discovering her new book, Struggle. I hope you enjoy. Hi Grace, welcome back to the Hidden Why podcast.
So pleased to be here again, Lee. Thanks for having me.
You've been busy writing books.
I have indeed.
You've got a new book called Struggle, The Surprising Truth, Beauty and Opportunity Hidden in Life's Shittier Moments.
That's right.
It's a bit of a different angle because we've come on the show previously, episode 229, so quite a while ago actually, and you're all about productivity. And what I was interested in when I was speaking with you about productivity is that you describe yourself as fairly disorganized, and that's why productivity became your thing, and now you help millions of others with their productivity. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I got to the millions yet, but definitely in the thousands.
helping people anyway with their productivity. And I love the topic of productivity, but today's a little bit of a different topic with your book in mind, and struggle. And I'm guessing this is quite similar. You probably have written this book off the back of your struggles and how you've maybe used those struggles as opportunities rather than setbacks.
Yeah, well, actually, it came from an observation through the work I do in productivity. So in the world of productivity, often people kind of reduce it to it's just about doing more stuff, being more efficient, getting things done quicker, faster, and better. And the words I'm struggling are often seen as the opposite of being productive. But what I noticed was that doesn't tell the full story of struggle or of productivity. So it was really something that I noticed plays a part in all of our work and all of our lives. There are sometimes times when things just feel hard, but there are also times where it feels like struggle is getting in the way of us trying to do our best work. But actually, at the same time, it can also be the birthplace of our best work. So I guess it really bore out of not just my own experience, but what I was observing in clients that I work with, people that companies, organizations, teams, and individuals that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah, gotcha. Nice. Can you give us an example of a struggle that's sort of that scenario, just to put it in perspective?
Yeah, I mean,
you probably got plenty.
If we think about the pandemic. In the past year, for example, that's been a struggle for a lot of people. We've had businesses who've had to completely rethink their business model. I think Think Productive, which is the organization I do a lot of my corporate work with, I think they got to a point where they just stopped revising the business plan because it just kept changing so quickly. But actually, what we've also noticed in this time is that innovation and change has been happening faster than ever before. So you've got workplaces that have previously said we can't trust our people to work from home, all of a sudden had to. And even people who went, oh no, I don't think I can do virtual meetings, all of a sudden they had to. And in having to kind of almost when the conventional route is shut, sometimes that's what it takes for us to go to the slightly more unconventional ways. And that's often where innovation happens. That's, it's on the periphery, not at the core.
Yeah. I guess everyone listening can probably relate to the struggle of the pandemic that they've had in their own lives and how things have now changed and become, I guess, the new normal in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, and then there's also times when we make mistakes. There's times when things go wrong, when it feels like the world is conspiring against us. But there's also times when we get it wrong, and even then, sometimes they can be actually, that can be good information as well. So sometimes when, so in my own business, for example, when I've maybe taken on a client and then realized actually that was probably not the best fit for me, or had a particular inquiry that went horribly wrong. Those aren't pleasant experiences, but actually the thing about struggle is if we see it as a sign of failure, we're much more likely just to shut down and go, well, I just need to move on. But actually, if you start to see it as the birthplace of maybe opportunity, or even just good learning, we pay attention to it instead. And so I've noticed that those really kind of frustrating, disappointing, or irritating times in growing my business have also been the times when I've learned the most in my business. I don't know, has it been the same for you, Lee?
Look, I think struggle. Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a mindset to handle it, and that's a question that I'd probably ask you is when you observe your clients going through struggle, how typically do most people handle it? Do they use it as an opportunity, or do they struggle with that struggle? And for me personally, I feel that most of the moments that we look back in that we've really enjoyed have some level of struggle. And they're the moments too that have a lot of the reward. Certainly if I look back, I remember once I went camping and we had a big rainstorm come through and we were struggling through it because it was wetting everything, and we were under this big tarp canopy and all sort of huddled together trying to keep everything dry. And, it wasn't really what you want to be doing when you're going camping, but it's some of the fondest memories of that trip. So yeah, it can be taken that way. But how do you find when you've observed your clients, etc., going through struggle, how do most people handle it?
Well, I think often what happens is our instinct is to go into fight or flight mode. So it's a stress response that we tend to have to struggle. And often, that's a response that comes from fear. And there's a lot of good reasons why that happens, but there's a lot of unhelpful things that come out of it as well. So our fight and flight response tends to give us narrow vision. It tends to give us tunnel vision. It's just basically, how do I home in on either the weak spot in my opponent or find the escape route? Whereas if you're struggling, say, with a difficult work relationship, a difficult client or a difficult colleague, for example, having tunnel vision that gets you into a space of either avoiding, procrastinating from that conversation, or charging in headlong and fighting that person is probably not going to be helpful, right? And equally for you, being in that rainstorm, trying to run away or fight the situation isn't going to be helpful. So what we need to do is almost recognize, okay, I'm in struggle right now. Recognize the emotion, so the hurt or the frustration or whatever it is that's going on. But then what we can do is activate curiosity in the face of fear. So where fear will say, shit, something's gone wrong. Fear will go, curiosity will go, something's happening. That's interesting. And that can just activate a different perspective that can then maybe help us to either see the funny side of the situation or the fondest memories that you talked about there, or even just to see some different ways forward rather than just fight or flight.
How do you recognize these moments? Is there a way to just pause? Is it about being mindful?
Yeah, I think part of it is, and I think part of it is noticing. Recognizing when you are. I think most people know if I ask you kind of how does it feel when you're stressed? How does it feel when you are either maybe panicking or feeling anxious or just kind of you see the red mist? So for some people it's like that they go rhino mode and they want to charge ahead. For some people, it might be a feeling of anxiety, or you can notice certain things in your body as well. So, like if your breathing gets more shallow, sometimes it's for some people they go into fixing mode. It's like I need to fix this right now, and it's like I need to control that situation. I call it the toilet paper moment. So I don't know. Did you get this over in Australia? So I'm in the UK, and we had the toilet paper. People kind of going out and stockpiling toilet paper during the pandemic. Did you get that too?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, and if you think about it, it wasn't even a stomach bug virus, so it's not as if if I catch COVID, I'm going to need more toilet paper. But it was the thing that people tend to go to get some kind of control.
Oh, the fear. I suppose that moment of recognizing, because look, I'll work through struggles and I guess I don't really pause to think about it at the time. I probably just push through or run away, I guess. I don't really know. I think I'm probably more tendent to keep going and figure out a way. But sometimes I'll probably get frustrated and do give up, so I can relate to that. So really that moment of recognizing and reflecting is probably something that we need to train ourselves to do.
Yeah, I think so. And and sometimes it also just comes from conversation as well. So really interestingly, struggle is universal. We all have it and we all experience it, but we very rarely talk about it because it seems to be a bit of a taboo. So it's like, I don't want to admit I'm struggling because someone might think less of me or that I can't cope, or so there's all this baggage that we seem to attach to struggling. And
you talk about the social media world too, how we're so externally focused, and if something doesn't go right, or if we're seen to failure, that's not really good. So we make sure we avoid talking about it at all costs.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we do talk about it, we don't only talk about it as like the journey to the fairy tale ending. So if you hear a motivational speaker, for example, talk about the adversity that they've overcome, they only tend to talk about it at the point where they've overcome it and they've got a happy ending to share.
Right.
Whereas we very rarely talk about it when we're in the middle of it. But the effect of that is that when we are in the middle of it and we don't want to talk about it, we just want to look away. We're just trying to get through it rather than pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah. Do you think it's a deliberate practice of talking about it at the end rather than the middle? Because I sort of think of a struggle and maybe naturally we're more inclined to talk about it at the end because we've pushed through it and that's the part that's really rewarded us. And perhaps that middle part, we can't even remember that well, of doing it. Because that reward is probably that overwhelming that it clouds that sort of space.
Yeah, it could be. But then at the same time, that means that there are certain times where maybe we push through and we don't feel like we're getting there, and then we don't have the reward. And then we're far more likely to just go, oh, okay, that didn't work, and sort of almost shove it on the carpet or hide it away. And
move on to the next thing.
There are still move on to the next thing. And I see that sometimes in coaching clients that it's so for some people will just keep getting stuck and struggle, and it's like it's overwhelming and they can't move on. Other people almost move on too quickly. So it's like, well, this isn't working for me. I'm going to move on to something else, and then that's not working for me. Then I'm going to move on to something else.
Right.
And it's almost like they're trying to outrun themselves. Whereas actually, what probably would be more helpful for them is to recognize, okay, I'm struggling with this. What does that actually mean? Is it a sign? Is it really a sign that I'm in the wrong place? Or actually, is it a sign that I'm at the edge of my comfort zone and I'm about to go into my stretch zone? And that maybe this sense of discomfort is exactly how it's supposed to feel when I'm growing, when I'm stretching, when I'm going into uncharted territory, all of those things. So like at the moment, we're a year and a bit into the pandemic. We're looking at, okay, are things going to go? People are talking about going back to normal or going into a new normal. We're still very much in uncharted territory. So for leaders, for example, they're having to say a lot of "I don't know," because we don't know, and yet it's really uncomfortable to go there to say like, "Oh, actually, I don't know the answers." But if we're in uncharted territory, what we need to hear from our leaders probably far more often is a sense of humility or a sense of truth of saying, actually, we don't know all the answers right now, but this is what we're going to do. So there's something there, I think, about the vulnerability of struggle that some people really struggle with.
Yeah. So have you got any examples of yourself, like with a big struggle recently that you've gone through?
Oh, well, there's quite a few different stories in the book I talk about. So,
Can you share one of
which
those?
one shall I tell? Yeah, sure. So, one example was a mistake that I made. So, I was working with we were talking to a potential client. So it was a large company. We'd been talking to them for a while about running quite a large scale development program for them. And they wanted to see me in action first. We don't do that many public workshops that people can come and kind of see. We've started doing more of them now since we've gone online. But back in those days, most of my workshops were in-house, where it's harder to get a different company to come in and observe it. But I did have one coming up, and it was for a membership organization. And I thought, okay, this will work. So I forwarded the details to her. I said, this is happening on this date. Would that work for you? If so, I'll get you added to the guest list. And she came back and said, yeah, that's great. Book me in. Really looking forward to it. So I send the details to the organizers. And I said, they'll send you all the kind of joining instructions, that sort of thing. And then when it got to that week, I think this particular event was on the Wednesday. And on the Tuesday morning, I was sat on the train heading off to another workshop. And I started looking at my emails, and I spotted an email from this client contact saying, hey, really looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. I can stay afterwards to have a chat. So, looking forward to seeing you in action and then, having a chat afterwards. And I noticed that she'd sent it the night before. So
Oh,
her tomorrow was the day I was reading this email, heading off to a different workshop. So I start thinking, okay, does she mean tomorrow, tomorrow, or tomorrow today? And then I start looking through my email trail, and I noticed that when I'd first sent her the link, I sent her the correct link, but I had said it was on the 18th when it was actually on the 19th.
oh,
So I'd given her the wrong date.
yeah.
Yeah, now it's a really simple mistake, but when you're trying to make an impression, when you're trying to make a good impression, you're trying to win a client. And when your job is, when you're a productivity ninja, which means your job is about making other people's lives easier, making a mistake like getting the date wrong is something that hurts, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah. Um, so basically, how I responded at the time was I just thought, okay, I picked up the phone, I tried to call her, hoping that she hadn't set off yet. I left her a voicemail. I called my colleague who was working with me on the account and kind of told her what was going on. I sent an email as well to follow up to go, I really hope you haven't set off yet. I made a mistake. I got the dates wrong. It's actually tomorrow, not today. And there was all sorts of stuff going through in me at the time. So, that kind of sense of guilt, that sense of
Mm,
shame, that sense of, oh, how stupid of me to get this wrong, and
yeah.
all of that kind of stuff, right? And what actually happened was, my colleague was amazing. She was like, Grace, you're human. Like, hurrah, you are human after all. And when the client called me back, she was like, it's okay. I've got your message. I haven't set off yet. But I can rearrange things and I can make it tomorrow. So yeah, I'll be there. And that moment where I just felt like I was falling because I had made a mistake and all of this stuff was happening, what happened was that I felt like I'd been caught. So the two people in their response to my mistake
Hmm.
actually caught me when I felt like I was going to fall and hit the ground.
Hmm.
Um, and somebody said to me recently, yeah, but Grace, maybe you just got lucky. Like they were really kind in their response to your mistake. And I was like, well, yeah, no, I don't think it's luck, though. I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift we can give each other.
Hmm.
But it's also, so that there were two things I thought about that. I thought, yes, it's a gift, and we can only give that gift to each other if we've got margin ourselves. So if that client, for example, was really stressed and was up against it, and then I'd messed up, she may not have responded quite so kindly. So I think there's a lesson there in how much margin do we have to allow ourselves to respond generously to other people's mistakes.
What do you mean margin in that situation?
I think it means like not so for example for her, there's the practical margin in that she could rearrange things, but I think more in terms of the mental and emotional capacity. So like imagine if you're oh, remind me, Lee, do you have kids?
I do. I've got two girls,
Yeah. Okay, how old are they?
9 and 6. No, 6. That's
Yeah,
right.
9 and 6. So like if you're really if you're relaxing, you're pretty chilled, and I don't know, they smash a plate or
Yeah.
they do something, right? You're probably more likely to go, oh, okay, what happened there? Right, we need to clean it up, and you'd probably react in a fairly calm manner, or maybe with a sense of humor or whatever. But if you're stressed and you're just about to run out the door and you're late for an important meeting and then that happens,
Hmm.
how are you going to respond then?
Yeah, there's two different scenarios.
Yeah.
And I think, talking about your example, and this example that you're giving me now, it's, having composure in these moments.
Mm.
Because when you go through that struggle and you have those feelings of guilt, shame, whatever, or when I'm, rushing out the door and feeling quite overwhelmed and busy and frustrated already, and then my kids smash a plate. If you don't have composure in those moments, it's very hard to then use that struggle as an opportunity as such.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I think there's a lesson in there that's actually sometimes we think of productivity as cramming in as much as possible,
Yeah.
but actually the more breathing space we have, the more we're able to deal with the things that we can't plan for. So the better we're able to respond with composure, whether it's a mistake that we've made or a mistake that somebody else has made. So that was one of the lessons in that situation. But the other lesson, when that person asked me, said to me, "Did you just get lucky? What would you have done if she hadn't responded well?"
Yeah.
And I realized that actually still, my response would still have to be, okay, so I need to own what's happened. But I still have a choice whether, how I respond to her. So I could respond with composure, with, I'm really sorry I've made that, I've created this inconvenience. Is there anything we can do to make it right? Or I could respond equally. I could respond with a lot of blame or shame. So I could either respond badly towards her, or I could respond badly to myself. And I could end up beating myself up and going, I'm never going to let this happen again. And that can fuel my perfectionist tendencies. So next time everything I do, I'm going to double, triple check and overwork so that I don't get caught out again. And that has got its own cost as well, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
If we go down that road.
Yeah.
So I think my answer to what would I have done if she hadn't responded well, I think came back to, well, I've still got to pull it back to purpose. And my purpose in that situation is to try and make a good impression. So even if I haven't even if I've made a mistake, how I respond in that mistake is there's still a choice there of how do we show up when we're not at our best? It can still make a good impression compared to how do we show up when we're at our best. And we see that sometimes in customer services, or in, when things go wrong for companies, how do they respond in that moment? How do we respond in the times where things aren't going well can actually tell a lot about us. And sometimes those are the moments that can grow and strengthen relationships even more than when things are plain sailing.
Yeah. It's really good to reflect on all that, because I think, number one comes to me is composure and trying to practice the art of composure, because there's so many situations in our day-to-day lives where it's really hard to keep, composed. And the part of that I think is important, with all those emotions that may be brought to the surface in those difficult situations, is remaining, on purpose, like you said, thinking about, what you're actually trying to achieve. But then just being normal, being natural, being authentic, in those situations, because it's easy not to be, and it's easy to try and to cover the truth, or to cover, whatever it is, to save face, I guess, and to hide the vulnerability, because I guess that's what we're all doing. How do you think people could practice composure? Is it just through experience and through reflecting, or is it other things we can do?
I think it actually comes from two things. It comes from recognition first, so recognizing those emotions, so that the shame, the blame, the guilt. Composure actually doesn't come from denying those. It comes from recognizing them and then choosing our response. Because if we try and deny those feelings and bottle them up, it's like squeezing toothpaste. It's going to come out somewhere. So it's a really interesting one, because a lot of people think, well, surely composure is like the swan on the surface and who's paddling really frantically underneath. That's a very typical image that we have. But what that often gets translated to is, I'm actually really frantic, but I'm just pretending I'm not. Whereas actually what you really want to do is just notice, okay, I'm paddling like mad. Why am I paddling like mad? What's going on? And then maybe asking some of those questions of do I need to paddle like mad here? So for example, the fight and flight fear response will often, when that happens, it will be saying things like, for me in that situation, it was things like, oh, that was a really stupid thing to do. And it's, I could use that to beat myself up, or I could go, yeah, okay, that didn't go well, and kind of just acknowledge and feel that, but then go, well, what does that mean? What is fear telling me it means? So fear will tell me, well, that means that they're never going to trust you again, or that they're going to think really badly of you. But what else could it mean? Could it mean that I'm human? and and so it can mean that I show up more authentic, like you say, rather than less authentic.
Yeah, well, it might be an opportunity to create that authentic connection with the other party, to a next level as well. And I think people would appreciate that. Well, people do appreciate that much more than you trying to cover it up, and make excuses and avoid ownership. If you take responsibility and are fully vulnerable, people will appreciate that, and you're more likely to get a better response. Even if if it was inconvenient to her and created a lot of frustrations to that person, she probably would have appreciated it at a more higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think it comes from two things. It comes from the recognition, so feeling and it's feeling those feelings without feeding it or without letting it take over. And then it's what I call activating curiosity. The kind of just asking that, start asking yourself questions like, what am I making this to mean? What else could it mean? What's going on here? Where am I feeling drawn to? So if I know that I'm a fixer, which I am, where am I drawn to, like trying to take control or to fix things? And is that really going to help? And maybe like that whole bring it back to purpose. What was my purpose here again? And how do I still serve that purpose in this situation? And that those kind of questions will help to get me back on track. And those are so I talk about in the book. I talk about what I call the 3 shits model.
Three shits.
The first is oh shit. It's just that's the recognition. It's like noticing, oh shit, something's gone wrong, or this hurts. The second is what is this shit, and so that's when you start to activate curiosity, and then that will lead on to the third, which is holy shit, which is the revelation. It's like that's when you discover. So it might be like, holy shit, this is still the moment that I can connect with this person, or we can still build a relationship here, or holy shit, these people caught me, and it's okay to be human, and it's okay to make mistakes. Or sometimes it might be, holy shit, we can't run face-to-face workshops anymore because of the pandemic, but guess what? That means that there are other opportunities that we can create, and so. That kind of revelation is what comes from those 2 phases of recognition and reckoning.
Yeah, I like it. Good way to put it. It's like recognizing, then reflecting on what it is, and then the discovery part as well.
Yeah, that's
of the process. I like it. What who do you look up to, like when applying curiosity to situations? Is there any particular people you look up to and admire for their ability to practice that curiosity?
I think in terms of sort of big names, I have a huge amount of admiration for Brené Brown. I think her work in sort of vulnerability and how we kind of rumble with our emotions and that kind of thing. It's she's got some really, really useful stuff there. I've got also
and how vulnerable is she? Hey, when you hear her speak,
right?
It's
exactly.
It's really good to watch, like to read her books, but to watch her as well. And I think the more we can do of that, the more the ability for us to be vulnerable will come through, and there's just so much magic in that space.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that she always talks about being on the journey as well. So it's not like I got to the end of the journey, I've made the map, and I'm going to talk you through it. It's like we're doing this as we go along. And again, going back to I think that ties in well with what we talked about earlier about having those conversations in the middle of the struggle. So when she's writing about her stuff, she's using her own examples because she's still going through it herself. So I think that's I get a lot of my inspiration from her. I've got some friends who are just naturally really curious, who just ask really awkward questions. So I quite like I sometimes take my inspiration from them as well. Do
they ever get put on the spot for their awkward question asking?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But it's a gift, and obviously it can be overused sometimes. But
it can
be a gift.
Yeah.
So but I can sometimes I can go, okay, so what would Jude say in this situation, or what would Graham say in this situation, and that would kind of I can channel my inner questioner that way. And start to get curious. But also, I'm a coach. So a lot of what I do is ask my clients questions. So sometimes just putting that coach hat on to go, okay, if this was a client in this situation, what questions would I be asking them? That can be helpful as well.
Yeah. I like those awkward questions. The part of this that I think is really important to take away is that ability to give yourself space. Because if you don't give yourself that, it's going to be very difficult to have that, part of recognition and reflection, and then to have that part of discovery. Do you find that people are just so reactive? Like in that moment where you knew you made a mistake, you could have just reacted very quickly, and that could have made the situation worse.
Yeah, definitely. I think we can get really reactive, and a lot of our working culture sort of promotes that. So a lot of our working culture is around speed, and people get rewarded for how quickly they reply to emails, and and things like that. So I think what that does is it primes us for more and more of that fight and flight response rather than the considered, creative or compassionate response. So I think it's really quite countercultural to give yourself space, but it's something that we can practice. I think we can notice when we don't have enough space and go, hang on, something needs to change here. But we can also practice it. So in the moment, so Brené Brown has this thing where she just chants like pain, 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 pain as a way of just noticing. And in a similar way, that oh shit moment, even just go, I'm having an oh shit moment, or even just going shit, 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 that can be sometimes a way of in the moment creating space that allows kind of the rest of your brain to catch up.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. The culture of speed is really critical, and even emails. You see an email come through, and you just watch people. I do it myself, but if you watch someone do it, you sort of reflect on your habits a bit more too. I think so. I could see someone get an email, a colleague, and then immediately wanting to respond, and I'm just like, oh,
yeah,
why? We don't have to. Doesn't we're not always going to be in front of our email, so there's no need for that. It's not like it's a life and death situation, so there's no need for that. And yet here we are immediately responding. And I said, and what's that going to do? Like, how well have we thought out this response? And I do it myself, and I'll often catch myself starting to type, and I'll go, hang on. And I'll have to delete the email, and I'll just pause, and, I'll just come back to it later. Give myself that time. Because I feel when your emotions are that charged too, you're likely to, not think as clear and blurt out things that you don't want. But if you go away and come back, you're going to be calmer. The emotions aren't going to be there. You're going to be a little bit more mindful about the response.
Yeah, absolutely. I often call that one email rage. So it's like road rage, but with email.
Yeah.
And even just giving it a name helps you to go, hang on, I'm experiencing email rage right now. Like walk away from the computer, do not press send. And you're absolutely right there, because sometimes if something presses your buttons, if it triggers something, and you go into fight or flight mode, you're going to respond as if someone is dying, or as if someone is attacking you and your life is in danger.
Yeah.
And that's what often ends up creating even more struggle, because that's often going to make things worse. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. A lot of us just get into almost kind of default mode of reaction, and I think I've noticed that increase over the pandemic as well, because there's been so much uncertainty and so much change, and the fact that there's been an actual pandemic, so there is a life threat out there somewhere. I think all those things add together, and they make our limbic system, which is our lizard brain, basically the part of our brain that's responsible for that fight and flight response. It makes that more sensitive. So if you and if you're aware of it, you can spot it. So if you know that you've been going through a high stress or a high uncertainty kind of situation, then just you'll notice, do you know what? I am responding to those emails that come in as if everything is a threat right now, and I'm having to respond to it like that. And just if you catch yourself doing it, then that gives you the opportunity to go, whoa, hang on a minute, stop, walk away, like you say, take a break, come back when I'm thinking clearer, rather than just pounce and react.
Yeah. And I think, email rage, or even if it's in a situation where you're directly with someone, it's easy to react. But if you can just find that moment where you can just chill and relax and even walk away and come back, that's going to certainly help in those situations too.
Yeah, definitely. And it goes both ways as well. So you can notice fear in yourself, but you can also notice fear in other people. So if you're with somebody and you're noticing that they're getting really agitated about it, if you feel like, whoa, hang on a minute, why are they getting so defensive and they're attacking and they're saying things that are really unreasonable, and you start fighting back, that can just end up fueling the situation. Whereas if you notice the fear in them and go, oh, hang on a minute, they're in lizard brain mode. They're responding to this situation as if it's a threat. They're panicking. Then that might give you the opportunity to think, rather than sort of argue with them in terms of what's coming, what they're throwing at you. It might give you a situation to go, okay, hang on a minute, what's your real concern here? What's the worry here? So you can maybe start to speak to that fear a little bit, or even just to call that space to go, hey, can we take a break and come back? Can we just grab a coffee first, and then think about this situation? I had a situation where with a colleague, we actually started talking about, like, hang on, what's going on here? Like, what's your fear? What's my fear? And then when we actually started talking about that out loud, we found that we weren't actually at loggerheads. We just had, different fears that were playing out in that situation. So I think there's something really powerful to noticing when fear is sort of in the driving seat and driving a conversation. And then we can respond to that with a sense of like calm or safety, to kind of like bring it down, scale it down, so that we can come out of that fear mode.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, a point that I just thought of when you were talking then is often we can make it too much about us too, rather than thinking about the other person and actually asking them, how do you feel? What's your situation? Why do you feel like that? That might help us better respond as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit like, when we're in that kind of fight and flight situation, it can be a bit like, the tired toddler. So, when the kids we're toddlers and they're having that tantrum about a shoe, it's like, it's not about the shoe, is it?
No.
It's the fact that they're tired, they're overwhelmed. And so even that, sometimes when you recognize that somebody is it's fear talking, you don't bother arguing with the toddler about the shoe, because it's not about the shoe. And in the same way, maybe that way we don't get caught up in the argument that's actually it's not about that at all. And maybe it gives us more space to notice what's really going on, and to be able to speak into or do something about the genuine things that we can do and that we can help with.
Yeah. Lots of reflection. What do you hope people picking up this book, reading it, take away? What's the one thing what's your mission?
So my mission, I guess, is to start a fresh conversation about struggle. So given that struggle is something we don't talk about, I want to see people talking about it more. And my hope is that the book gives people ways of thinking about struggle, ways of taking away the shame or the taboo around it, but also ways of starting conversations, whether it's talking about their own struggle or supporting other people in their lives through struggle. So, I think I was talking to somebody else the other day, and I said, the book is. They commented that the book is written in really short chapters, so it's the sort of thing you can pick up and read and get something out of it straight away, and it's the sort of book that you can come back to time and time again. So I said, it's like a kettle book, so you can keep it by the kettle, and when you're brewing a cup of tea, you can then just like pick it up and read something and go, that's the thing. So maybe next time you're having get the book, and next time you're having no shit moment, go put the kettle on, pick up the book and read a couple of pages. So I'm hoping that it'll be kind of practical and immediate in that kind of situation. But then on the wider scale, I'm hoping it starts some new conversations.
That's awesome. I love the idea of this book. I think it's an important book for all of us to have a look at, to have a read, and to better understand our struggles. I was going to ask you a question then about this idea of struggle and sharing struggles. Do you feel that, and I see this often, particularly in social media, that someone might share a struggle, that people often share their struggles on social media, and maybe it's just a call for help, I'm not sure. But what I often see, the responses are very much fluff. They're not really helpful at all. It's just like, oh, no, you're good. It's okay. It just really annoys me because I don't think it's very constructive and I don't think anything actually happens.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think when someone shares a struggle, it would be really good to just find out like what is it they need at the time. I think I had a similar conversation with someone who was talking about she noticed on Clubhouse, which is like a social media platform that's audio only, where somebody would open up about something they were struggling with, and everyone else would kind of jump in with like, oh, this is what you should do, and this is what you should do, and here's my advice. And it was like, whoa, just give them some space. Did they ask for advice? Because what tended to happen was that person would then go, oh, no, it wasn't that bad, because it was almost like people were jumping in trying to fix them. So I think
it's very much a male approach.
Yeah.
Because females don't want to have their solutions, their problems solved. I've learnt that very quickly with my wife, that she just wants me to listen. She doesn't want the solutions.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes like what we need is we just need to be heard, or, we need a space to express something or to think out loud, or just to witness it. So sometimes even like just to go, I hear you and I see you, that can be really powerful. So if somebody's going through a struggle, but actually there's nothing you can do to help them through it, even just to go, I'm with you, I think can be really, really powerful. But then maybe rather than jumping in and trying to fix the situation, maybe just asking, like, what is it you need right now? And sometimes it might be, hey, it's just good to be able to talk about it. And other times it might be, I'm looking for advice, but not always. So I think maybe starting those conversations, and it could be that you start a conversation. I've seen it on social media where some people start conversations about just keeping it real, to go like, oh gosh, like sometimes all we do is talk about these things, don't we? But behind the scenes, there's also been this and this going on, and it's like, I'm not sharing this to look for sympathy or to look for fixing things, but just to share like, hey, this is the struggle is real. It does happen, and I think what that does is it gives other people permission to either kind of put the hand up and say, yeah, me too, or to at least know that, do you know what, it's okay to be vulnerable and to share something that we're struggling with right now.
Yeah, I love it. Lots to take away, Grace. It's awesome to have you back. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, people just find you at your website, don't they? Is it gracemarshall.com?
Yeah, gracemarshall.com. That's how they'll be able to find me. If you want to go straight to the information about the book, then strugglethebook.com will take you there.
strugglethebook.com. I'll stick both of those links in the show notes, guys, so check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. I will also put in there a link for the book so you can pick it up from Amazon if you wish to purchase a copy. Grace, thanks so much, guys, listening. Thanks for tuning in today.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families, you can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe, or subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon.